Okay, in this video we're going to be introducing negative numbers. So let's draw out a number line. Okay, I think the most important value to look at when we're thinking about negative numbers is 0, because 0 is the dividing line between positive numbers, the numbers we've been working with so far, and negative numbers, right? So on the number line we know here we have 1, 2, 3. Now there's an exact mirror image in the negative values. -1, -2, -3, -4, right? Just like 4. And on and on and on. Now, so if I'm at 0, let's imagine I'm at 0 and I want to add 10. Where's that going to get me to? Positive 10. Okay? What if I'm at 0 and I want to take away 10? I subtract 10. Well, same pattern. It's the mirror image. So if adding 10 to 0 gets me to 10, then taking away 10 from 0 gets me to -10. Okay, and the pattern actually extends even further. I'm at 10. Well, what's 10 plus 10? 10 plus 10 gets me to 20. So what do you think is going to happen here if I'm at -10 and I subtract 10? Right now I'm at -20. So the reason I'm pointing this out is because we can actually use some of the addition facts that we already know in our head, perhaps from positive integers, and use those to help us with negative integers as well. So let's take a look at the example of -4 plus 9. Okay, and we're going to think about this a couple different ways. First, let's just take it as it's written. So we're starting at -4. So if here's -4, let's make that 0. I said 0 is an important number for us. And we're adding 9, which means we're going to go 9 this way, right? Plus 9. But let's do it in jumps. I'm going to jump straight to 0, right? Because, well, if I was at 4 and I wanted to get to 0, what would I have to do? I'd have to take away 4. So what if I'm at -4? What do I need to do to get to 0? I need to add 4. Right? So I can jump pretty easily straight from -4 to 0 is plus 4. And then I was supposed to add 9 altogether. I already added 4. So I have 5 more that I need to add, getting me to 5. Right? The other thing that we could do is we could say, well, this is addition. And there's this little thing called the commutative property of addition. The name's not important, but it means the order we add in doesn't matter. So I can flip these around. And now it would become 9 plus -4. Okay? When we add a negative number, we think about that like subtracting. Okay? You can think about like taking on a debt. That's not a good thing for my money or my bank account. That's a bad thing, right? My bank account is going to go down if I got a debt now of $4. So we could rewrite this as 9 minus 4, which is 5, right? So we get the same answer either way. Okay, so here we have 7 plus -12. Like I talked about, when we are adding a negative number, that's really like subtracting. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this as 7 minus 12. We're starting at positive 7, and we're going back 12. So we'll go back 7 to get to 0. And then from there, right, we can think of this as a -7 and a -5. So there's 5 more to go back. Gets me to -5. Okay, I'm using 0 as a nice landmark because it's easy to get to 0 from 7, right? I know it's -7 to get to 0. And then it's easy to subtract from from 0, right? It's easy to subtract from 0. I know 0 minus 5, well, that's just -5. Okay, but how else could we have thought about this? Remember the commutative property of addition? I could also think about this as -12 plus 7. In this case, in our number line visualization, we'll start here at -12, and we're going to go 7 in the positive direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if I need to, I could count, right? -11, -10, -9, -8, -7, negative 6, negative 5, right? What have we done here? We've added 7. Okay, so really it's whatever feels best for you. But again, remember, if we see it written like this and this is how we think about it, we can just change this to a subtraction symbol, okay? Okay, so let's take a look at this one. We're not going to do it out several ways. We'll just kind of go through it as it's written without moving anything around. So here we are adding a negative number. So I'm going to rewrite this as subtraction. Okay, plus negative 6, the same as minus 6. Now, where are we starting on the number line? If here's 0, we're starting at negative 15. Right? We're starting here, and then we're subtracting 6, which means which way am I going? This way. Okay, if we need to, we could count one at a time, or we could skip count. I know that from negative 15, it's 5 more to get to negative 20, right? I can use everything I know over here. If it's from 15, I need to add 5 to get to 20. Then from here, negative 15 minus 5 gets me 20. I need to go one more back, right? Because remember, in total, I'm subtracting 6, and that gets me to negative 21. Okay, let's take a look at one last addition problem with negative numbers. So once again, we're adding a negative number, so I'll rewrite this as subtraction. It becomes 18 minus 20. Let's do it out on the number line. Where are we starting? At positive 18, and we're going back 20. Where can I jump to? Straight from 18, right? I can jump right to 0. Because I know how many do I need to take away from 18 to get to 0? 18. So that's minus 18. I'm supposed to take away 20. So how many more do I still need to take away? 2 more. So negative 1, negative 2 is where we land. Okay, so negative 2 will be our answer. But I also want to point out a pattern here, right? So 18 minus 20 gives me negative 2. What's 20 minus 18? Well, 20 minus 18 is 2, positive 2, right? And that might be easier to do in your head. So once we recognize this pattern, we can use it to our advantage. Let's take a look at one more example of this. Let's do 5 minus 11. I'm like, that's not so easy to do in my head. But do I know what 11 minus 5 is? Yeah, I do, right? 11 minus 5, that's 6. So 5 minus 11 is going to be negative 6, right? Do we see this the relationship between these? So when I switch the order of the subtraction, right? The digit stays the same, just switches from positive to negative, right? 20 minus 18 is positive 2. 18 minus 20 is negative 2. Same thing here, 11 minus 5 is 6, 5 minus 11, negative 6. Okay, so that's just a trick that I wanted to point out that can help us to do some of this in our head more quickly. Okay, in some ways we've already talked about subtraction, right? Because when we're adding a negative number, we just switch it to a subtraction problem is one way that we can do it. So I want to talk specifically about an example like this, okay? What's happening here? We're subtracting a negative number. So again, you could think about this as getting rid of a debt. Is getting rid of a debt a good thing or a bad thing? Is that going to add to your money or take it away? It's going to be a good thing, right? So when we're subtracting a negative number, it's like adding. So if I see 12 minus negative 7, I'm going to rewrite it as 12 plus 7, which, boom, is just going to give me 19. Okay, let's take a look at one more, just to make sure we're good on this. So here, negative 9 minus negative 3. So once again, we're subtracting a negative number. I'm going to change this to negative 9 plus 3. Where do we start on the number line? We start at negative 9. And we're adding 3, so we're going to go 3 to the right. 1, 2, 3. Right? Gets us to negative 6. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at how do we do multiplication with negative values, right? Remember that when we have two things in parentheses next to each other, that's another way to show multiplication. So this is negative 3 times 5, or times positive 5. Negative 7 times negative 2. Positive 4 times positive 6, okay? So what I have over here shows us the pattern for multiplication and what happens based on if we have positive or negative numbers. So what we see here, two positive numbers gets me a positive answer, right? That's the multiplication we've already talked about. If I have a positive number times a negative number, my answer will be negative. If I have a negative number times a positive number, my answer will be negative. But if I multiply two negative numbers together, my answer will be positive. So the way that I recommend you think about this is notice that these two, okay, if they're both the same sign, right, if they're either both positive or both negative, right, when they're both the same, my answer is going to be positive. But when I have one of each, right, the order doesn't matter, but when I have one positive, one negative, that's when I'm going to get a negative answer. So let's run through these really quickly, right? Hopefully we know our times tables. So we can just look at the values first and then decide if our answer is going to be positive or negative. So 3 times 5, that's 15. And this is a negative times a positive, so negative 15. Okay? 7 times 2 is 14. And a negative times a negative stays positive. Okay? We don't have to put the plus. If I put 14, we assume it's positive 14. 4 times 6, that's just two positive numbers, so positive 24. Negative 9 times 3, well, that's 27. And a negative times a positive gives me a negative answer. Okay? And now let's string a couple together. So we should just multiply one at a time. So let's first do negative 8 times negative 4. Well, a negative times a negative is going to be positive, so that's positive 32. So 32 times 7 times negative 2. Let's do 32 times 7. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 1 is 22. So, and these are two positive numbers. So it's positive 224. 224 times negative 2. So let's multiply this by 2. We get 448. And is it positive or negative? What does this tell us? This is a positive number times a negative number. One of them is positive, one of them is negative. So that's what gives us a negative value. Okay, so now we're going to talk about division, and what's great about multiplication and division is that the rules for positive and negative, right, and knowing what my answer is going to be is exactly the same. So in this first example, I have one negative number and one positive number, so I know my answer is going to be negative. And what's 24 divided by 6? It's 4, so negative 4, right? Okay, let's look at the next one. A positive and a negative. Well, one positive, one negative, that's going to give me a negative answer. And 35 divided by 5 is 7. Okay, here, negative 42 divided by negative 7. Well, that's two negative numbers, which will give me a positive answer. And 42 divided by 7 is 6, right? Remember that division and multiplication are opposites. So I could write multiplication facts to go along with each of these. And let's go ahead and do that. So I could say, well, negative 4 times positive 6 gets me negative 24, right? Okay, so let's take a look at this expression and follow PEMDAS to make sure we do it properly. Okay. P stands for parentheses. We need to do what's inside the parentheses first. We have some here. So first, let's do 2 minus 14. Well, what's 14 minus 2? 14 minus 2 is 12. So 2 minus 14 is going to give me negative 12. So this becomes negative 4 plus 3 times negative 12 over negative 12. Okay? We could cancel this out, but we'll just pretend that it's not there for now, just so we can go actually do all the operations. Okay, there's no exponents. Do we have any multiplication and division? Yes, this is multiplication, This is division. Let's do the multiplication first. 3 times negative 12 would give me negative 36. So negative 4 plus negative 36 over negative 12. Okay, now this is division. We're dividing a negative by a negative, so it will be positive, and 12 goes into 36 3 times. So negative 4 plus 3, which will give me an answer of negative 1. Okay, could show it on the number line. We're at negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1. Okay, or I could say, hey, well, this is like 3 minus 4, and 4 minus 3 is 1, so 3 minus 4 is negative 1. Okay, so here's the last expression we're going to look at. Do we have any parentheses? Yes, but when we look inside the parentheses, there's only one value there, right? So it's already simplified. This is just what we do when we have the negative values. So let's move on to exponents. Do we have any exponents? Yes, 2 to the third power. So 18 minus 3 times negative 4 plus, now 2 to the third power, that's 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. Okay. Do we have any multiplication or division? Yes, right here. So 3 times negative 4. If we want to keep this as a minus sign, we can think of it as a positive 3. Positive 3 times negative 4 gives me negative 12. So then it would be 18 minus negative 12 plus 8. Okay, that's if I think of this as a positive 3. The other option is I can remember that, well, subtraction is just like adding a negative number. So now let me think of this as negative 3 times negative 4 gives me positive 12. So, and then it would be 18 plus 12 plus 8. But that is the same thing because, right, here, as I have it written, we're subtracting a negative, which turns into addition anyway. Okay? From here, all we're doing is adding. Let's add here. 8 plus 2 is 10, plus 10 plus 10 is 30, plus 8 will give me 38. Okay, I hope that this video has been a helpful introduction into negative numbers. They'll continue to come up, so you'll get lots more practice with them. But I wanted to make sure that we cover all the bases we need before jumping into algebra. So thank you, as always, for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.